Hi everyone, welcome to the Crafty Pixie channel where we do sewing projects and subscription boxes. I am B. Whether you are new or old to this channel, thank you so much for stopping by. It is wonderful to have you. How you guys doing today? It is really hot in my neck of the woods today. Very, very hot. But at least it's not snowing. Anyway. Don't forget, if you haven't already, click the subscribe button down below and the notification bell so you know when I upload every week, usually on Wednesdays. I'm trying to get back into that rhythm. Leave a comment in the comment section down below, especially if you are a new subscriber. I would love to hear from you, and give the video a thumbs up. Okay, so in the August Sewers Club box, there was 2 projects. Today, I am bringing you project number 2. This is adorable. Very compact. This is great for a kid's backpack, like a middle school, high school kid's backpack. You know, throw chapstick or blush or whatever in there. This is great for a purse. It's adorable. The toughest part, I thought, was the little ruffle right here, but I think that's because I've never done it before. But other than that, this comes together really quickly once you cut out all of the pieces. I'm actually kind of addicted. I might make some more, but this is a great little, very beginner friendly. It's not difficult at all. I had to supply my own zipper, which was not a big deal. They gave us the fat quarter of fabric. This literally is a fat quarter of fabric project. I actually had a little bit of fabric left over. So this is really good if you have larger scrap pieces, or if you have fat quarters and you don't know what you want to do with them. This is great. There was a homemade tag that came with it, but I forgot to put it on when I was filming. And it's too late now because it's done. But it would look really cute with the tag on it as well. So without any further ado, let's get some materials and get started. For this project, you need the fat quarter that was provided to you. You'll actually even have a little bit left over. Since I cannot tell you the dimensions of the pieces, we're gonna go with piece number 1, which is fused with fusible fleece. And you have piece number 2 that is also fused with fusible fleece. You have 3 of piece 3. 1 of them is fused with fusible fleece. You have piece 4, not interfaced. And you have piece 5, not interfaced at all. You've got your zipper cut to the appropriate length. You do need to cut it to the appropriate length because you have zipper tabs that go along with it. You have, you should have your handmade tag that came with the box. I'm going to be putting that on today. You need a scrap piece of fusible fleece, a small one, just to go on the back of this. A marking tool, pins or clips, a ruler, a turning tool is always good to have, a seam gauge, scissors, matching thread, your sewing machine, an iron, and a little bit of time. So let's get started. For the first step, we're going to take pattern piece 4, or not pattern piece, but cutout 4, and your seam gauge, and we're going to fold up one of the long raw sides 1/4 inch. You can eyeball it if you want. I don't feel like I'm going to be great at eyeballing it today, so I am going to measure using the seam gauge. Yeah, I ain't doing great today. Hold on. There we go. We're going to iron it. Like I said, we're folding it up 1/4 of an inch. Make sure when you do it, you keep it nice and even, because this is going to be the hem for the ruffle on the front of this. So you don't need this being lopsided. This is going to be a decorative main focal point on the outside of this. Okay, so that's that. Now what you do is you take it once again and you just fold it up right along the raw edge. Just fold it right up like that, all the way across. If you want to measure another 1/4 of an inch, you can, but you don't have to. But you definitely want to make sure that you're staying even. Okay, and then we're gonna clip. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, you're going to top stitch right along the bottom where we just folded. So you want 1/4 of an inch seam allowance from the folded edge, okay? And then also, while we're there, you're going to get a stitch length of like 5, like a basting stitch. And you're going to sew right along the top raw edge of the long side. And you're going to sew, you're going to use 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Right across the top of that, you're going to use the basting stitch, so like a 5mm stitch length. Do not backstitch. Just sew right across and leave the tails long on either side, okay? I'm going to go do that and I will be right back. Now that that is done, what we're going to do is we're going to take the top piece of thread. So you want to separate till you find it. Here's the top side. Top thread, you want to tie a knot in it. All right, now you're going to take the top thread on the other side and you're going to start pulling. Come on, pull. And you're gonna gather. And you're gonna gather all the way across. Keep pulling it, keep gathering. And you're gonna gather this until this long piece of fabric is the size it says it needs to be in the pattern. Make sure when you do this that your ruffles are even. Just keep pulling. You want to try to make the ruffles evenly spaced throughout. All right, voila. We're at the appropriate length. Cut down the threads a little bit. Now you're going to take pattern piece 2. Yep, pattern piece 2. And the long side, right side up, and the wrong side down of the ruffle you just made. First time making a ruffle, look at that. And you're going to align it. Ruffle nicely. Line it right to the top. Make sure raw edge is aligned with raw edge. Now everyone's ruffles are going to look a little different, and that's okay. Like that. If you've got a little bit of excess, it's okay. Just make sure you've got a nice little ruffle there. Okay, and then we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, you're just going to baste the ruffle to the fabric piece. So I'm going to go do that, and I'll be right back. Once that's done, you're going to take piece A, and you're going to lay it right side down on the top of the fabric. So you've got right side facing up and you've got right side facing down. You're gonna match up those raw edges and clip them into place. Make sure you're not getting the wrong part of the ruffle into it. Like so, and we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew across with 1/2 of an inch seam allowance. So right along that, make sure you catch all 3 layers. Got a little layer sandwich there. So So make sure you catch all 3 layers. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and at the end. I'm gonna do that, I'll be right back. At this point, this is what you're going to be looking at. Now, we're going to take it and we're going to fold it up like so, flat against that seam you just made. Now, right now, we're going to iron this really, really well so it kind of stays a little flat for you. You want to make this as flat as possible for you. Don't worry about the ruffles. All right, just like that. Now you're going to want to take your ruler and you're going to want to measure to make sure this is the height that it needs to be. It's going to match your other number 3s. Okay. You should have 3 number 3s. So this should be the same length as those. Same width and same length. Okay, we're good. Use a ruler, don't use your fabric. Human error. All right, now we're gonna take this over to the sewing machine, and with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, we're going to stitch right across this edge right here. Now you want to make sure that you catch this seam when you do it. The seam has to face up, okay? If you want to, you can do an 1/8 of an inch, and then you can go up an 1/8 of an inch and do another row of top stitching to add a little bit more decoration. That's definitely fine. If you want to get a little bit daring and do a different color thread, you can do that too. All right, so I'm going to do that. Make sure you backstitch really well at the beginning and at the end. This is a thick piece, so be careful. I'm going to go do that and I'll be right back. Now that you've given the top stitch a press, you can place that to the side. And you're going to take your 2 number 5 pieces and your zipper, and we're going to attach the zipper tabs. Now, you're going to place the zipper tab just like so, okay, on both sides. You're going to clip them. I've made mine a little bit longer than the zipper tape because I can cut it in the end. I think it gives me a little bit more control that way. Pull that so it's out of the way. Pull this. Make sure they're together. You don't want it to be funny. Pin it into place. All right, now we're going to take this over to the sewing machine. Now when you do this, you're going to want the right side of the fabric facing the zipper top, okay? You're gonna take this over to the sewing machine, and with a 1/2 of an inch seam allowance, you're gonna sew right across both ends, both raw ends, okay? Make sure you backstitch really well at the beginning and at the end on the zipper tape, okay? So I'm going to go do that, and I will be right back. When you do it, make sure you go slowly over the zipper teeth. You don't want to break the zipper or the needle, okay? I'm going to do that. I'll be right back. Now that that is done, you're going to push the zipper tabs away. So right sides are facing up. Flip it over. Now you're going to fold the zipper tab and then fold it again to meet and connect so that they are even, just like that. Okay, we're going to clip it. Same thing to the other side. Just like so. Line the folded edges, clip into place. Just like that. So the raw edges are encased. Now we're going to take this back over to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch right along this edge right here. Make sure you back stitch really well at the beginning and at the end on the zipper tape if you made your zipper tabs a little bit longer. Okay, so I'm going to back stitch starting here, and I'm going to back stitch starting here. When you're done, if they're a little bit longer, you can go ahead and trim them to match your zipper tape. I'm going to do that. I'll be right back. Once you've done the zipper tabs, this is what you're looking at. At this point, you're going to want to mark a center line on the top of your remaining pattern piece number 3s and the piece that you just put together, as well as the center on the top and bottom of your zipper. Once you've done that, we're going to take the piece that you just put together with the ruffle, right side up, and you're going to take your zipper right side down, and you're going to center it with your center marks and pin into place. So when you look at it, once your zipper tape and the raw edge is aligned, all right, when you look at it, you should have 1/2 of an inch on either side that is not taken up by a zipper or the zipper tab. That is exactly what you want. Now you're going to take this over to the sewing machine and you're just going to baste down this zipper with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to go do that and I will be right back. Once you've done that, this is what you're looking at. Now you're going to take a piece of your cut piece number 3, the one that is not fused, and you are going to center it on top, right sides together. So center it. Just like that. Now we're going to take this over to the sewing machine and we're just going to sew across the same seam that you did when you basted, but this time you're going to do a normal 2.5mm stitch length and you're going to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Once you've done that, we're going to flip it and iron it. So I'm going to do that and I will be right back. Once you have done that, this is what you're looking at. I went ahead and pressed the seam, pushed the lining all the way to the bottom. I went ahead and clipped it just so it stayed into place. And now we're going to do the same thing to the other side. So you're going to take your number 3 piece that is fused with the fusible fleece, and you're going to lay that right side up where you've made your center mark. You're going to lay your piece that's already done down on top. You're going to align the center markings and pin or clip. just like so. And then you're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and with either 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch, whenever you can get closest to your zipper, you're going to baste this side down. So I'm going to go do that, and I will be right back. All right, with that basted down, we're going to take our other lining piece of number 3, and we're going to lay that right side down. Center our center markings. Like so. We're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and you're going to sew right over your basting stitches with the 2.5mm stitch length. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and at the end. Then we're going to come through and we're going to fold it out like we did before, press it, and then you're going to take it back to the sewing machine, and you're just going to top stitch on both sides right across with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Backstitch at the beginning and the end, and give those seams a good press as well. I'm going to do that, and I will be right back. With the top stitching done, this is what you're looking at. Now, this next part is very, very important. Ew, I got stuff on it already. Okay. You need to open this zipper at least a halfway open to 3/4 of the way open, because this is what you're going to be turning the bag right side out with part. Make sure that the handle's pointing out. You don't want it to get stuck in any seams or anything like that. Now, we are literally putting the outers together and the inners together, turning it right side out, and then you're pretty much done. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take the outer layers, hold them together, like so, pin into place, this is not a very big bag, so you can get away with fewer pins if you want to. If you've got like your ruffle kind of hanging out, tuck that in so it catches in the layers, like so. Pin right up here. Try to pin the seam in the same direction right here. Do the same thing to this side. Tuck that in there. Okay, make sure everything's in place. That's the outer. Now you're going to do the same thing to the inner layer, or the lining layer, but you are going to leave a 3 to 4 inch opening here. You've got a lot of fusible fleece, so I suggest 4 inches. You don't want to break any, you don't want to rip the fabric or any of the seams when you do that. There's enough room over here to give yourself a good opening. And then just pin everything down. Make sure everything's lined up when you do it. Now you're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and with a 1/2 of an inch seam allowance, you're going to sew around the whole thing. So you're going to start at one area, back stitch really well at the beginning and the end, But you definitely, backstitch a few times so this seam is really secure. And then 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way up. When you get over to where you're meeting the zipper, make sure you don't sew through the zipper tab. So if you feel like, you can feel where your zipper tab is. If you feel like you're gonna sew over it, just move over just a little bit so you don't catch it in the seam, okay? And then you're gonna go all the way around, backstitch really well at the end as well. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and turn everything right side out. So I'm going to go do that and I will be right back. All right, real quick before you turn everything right side out, I found the seams really bulky, so I went ahead and cut the corners without cutting the stitches and trimmed the seam allowance down to 1/4 inch, give or take a little bit, on the outer and the lining. I did not trim up the seam allowance where we have the opening, but I did cut the corners and trim it up on this side. So now go ahead and turn everything right side out. You know what I just realized? We didn't put our bag tag on. All right, well, if you want to put your bag tag on, when you install the zipper, before you pin the outer together and the lining together, go ahead and attach the bag tag to the outer fabric only. That is the perfect time to do that. That way you have all of the measurements and everything exactly where everything is going to be. But I went ahead and finished it, turned it right side out, and then I went ahead and just closed the seam that we pulled everything through using an 1/8 inch seam allowance, tucked everything back in, and gave it a really, really good press. This fabric got a lot of the wrinkles out when I gave it its final press, which is really nice. And then you are good to go. This is small. This is perfect for a purse or a backpack for school or anything like that. This is a really, really, really good one. All right, so don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, leave a comment, and give the video a thumbs up. Until next time, see ya!